Welcome to One Breath Wisdom, the podcast for therapists, healers, and soul-led space holders, ready to lead from wholeness, not burnout. I am Lisa McNett, founder of One Breath Institute and co-creator of the One Breath Method. Each week, I will be sharing trauma-informed insight, somatic tools, and real stories from the healing path, sometimes solo, sometimes with our co-founder, Deborah Dickey, and sometimes with special guests walking this path in their own powerful way. Together, we will explore how healing, embodiment, and presence can transform the way we live, lead, and care for others without losing ourselves. Let's take a breath and begin. In this first episode, I'm going to share with you the ways that this podcast has changed to become more focused on mental health and the One Breath method, and why we need a new way to care for ourselves and others. So first off, I am Lisa McNett, the founder of One Breath Institute and your host for this One Breath Wisdom podcast. I'm going to invite you to take a breath with me right now. This podcast, One Breath Wisdom, is the next version of Conscious Conversations with One Breath Institute. Conscious Conversations started as conversations between myself and our co-founder, Deborah Dickey. And Debbie will pop in from time to time and share an episode on her own, and hopefully also come back and have some conversations with me. But Conscious Conversations evolved into interviews with experts and interviews with our students, with a few solo podcasts tossed in. We talked about breathwork, we talked about spirituality, astrology, and really whatever we felt like within the realm of healing. So it's been a while, and that space gave me the chance to go even deeper into my own healing, even deeper into my work, my voice, and we've niched down and we've redefined, or we've more clearly defined what we are doing at One Breath Institute. We are supporting healing and training in introspective breathwork therapy, and that is now the One Breath method. Yeah, so what's emerged is a new name, a clearer purpose. One Breath Wisdom is here for therapists, healers, and soul seekers who are ready to learn from wholeness, ready to lead. Therapists, healers, and soul seekers who are ready to lead from wholeness, not the hustle. This is a space for embodied insight, unfiltered truth, and gentle practices that help you reconnect with yourself one breath at a time. Whew. Whether you have been following my work for years or you are just tuning in for the first time, I am so grateful you are here. I want to welcome you, and I want to thank you for connecting with me. So if you're listening, you might be someone who is a helper or a healer, or you might be someone who wants to make the world a better place and knows that you have a role to play in doing that. You may also identify with being empathic, sensitive, or just overwhelmed by people and the massive challenges we are facing as a society, as a collective together today. Whatever your role may be, many of us get into the helping and healing roles that we are in for 2 to 3 reasons. 1, to figure ourselves out. 2, because you see suffering everywhere and you want to help. I'm going to go back to figure ourselves out, and to figure out the world around us, to figure things out. And then, 2, because you see suffering everywhere and you know that there's suffering everywhere and you want to help. And then that third is because you feel called to be of service. It's this deep calling that you know you are meant to be of service in a helping way, that you have a mission or a role to play on this earth at this time. And newsflash, it's usually all three of those, all of the above happening together. But what ends up happening is you end up feeling exhausted, you end up feeling overwhelmed, completely depleted, like you never have enough time, like there's no space for you, or there's nobody there to support you when you need it or in the ways that you need it. You may question if you're even making a difference, and oftentimes can feel very isolated or like the black sheep. And yeah, just like nobody is there for you, there's no space for you. So there are reasons for this. There are reasons that this happens, and these can be linked back to our earliest years. These can even be linked back to our time in the womb. And I will come back and talk about that more on a later episode. I personally have experienced many painful lessons and faced pivotal moments in my life that not only changed my life for the better, but that became the foundation for the One Breath Method, the certification program that Deborah Dickey and I co created in our revolutionary approach to healing and self actualization, introspective breathwork therapy. So, in this podcast, I'll be talking about the One Breath Method. I'll be sharing tools and practices you can implement in your life right away. And I'll be interviewing students and experts. So, for a moment, I'll come back to me and a little bit about my story. Growing up, I was always interested in psychology and what drives human behavior. And as a young person, I planned for my education to go that route, to go in the route of psychology. But life took a different turn for me, one that led to becoming a nightclub manager and a functioning alcoholic. I fell into the lifestyle and the patterns that I resisted strongly as a child, but were coded into my nervous system. Like there's oftentimes this fear that we're going to become like our parents. And so we want to do everything completely opposite, but our nervous system knows the experiences that it had, particularly within the first 7 years of our life and our developmental years. And those are those codes that are in the nervous system play out in some way. And in the way that it played out for me, functioning alcoholic nightclub manager. But funny how life turns out, because my path did bring me to the study of psychology, but in a very different way than one would learn in textbooks. More embodied psychology, the psychology of the body, ancient wisdom, spirituality, and modern practices. So for me, it was a deep soul calling. I was a sensitive child. I knew that there was so much wrong with the world and with my family. And so I had this deep, deep, deep soul calling to be of service. And I knew I had this big mission in the world. And I just was suppressing that until I couldn't suppress it anymore. And until I was fed up with my life, until I woke up and I was fed up with my life. Yeah. More on that later. But when I finally answered the call of my soul, I went to India and I immersed myself in the ancient healing practices of Ayurveda and of Hatha Yoga. And I found the cave that I was meant to meditate in. I had been knowing that, I had been feeling that call to go meditate in the cave. I had been writing in my journal since the late 80s, early 90s, and I finally made it there in 2007. And this was in Tiruvannamalai at Ramana Maharishi. I'll just drop those two pieces in for now. In that cave of Ramana Maharishi at Tiruvannamalai, I had an awakening experience that is indescribable. It's truly indescribable, though I've tried to use words to describe it, and completely life changing. Why this podcast and why now? Well, what I have learned and what I have seen as an epidemic since I've been immersed in the world of holistic healing and mental health from that time in 2007 until now is how hard the helpers and the healers of the world work, and how overwhelmed and stressed they often are. And I'll add, oftentimes broke. It is time for a paradigm shift. And at One Breath Institute, we have developed a proven method for supporting mental health, a method that consistently gets clients the best results. And I say that as somebody who has worked with top therapists. I've worked in one of the top trauma and addiction recovery centers in the world, and I know and I've seen and I've been immersed in this world, the support that people get, and the ways that the one breath method helps. And I say this with true embodied knowing and with so much evidence behind it that our clients consistently get the best results. Let's take a look at the mental health field. The mental health field is overwhelmed. It's overwhelmed. Clients need more, and professionals are burning out trying to keep up. We are noticing that overwhelm is normalized. Nervous systems, everybody's, are in survival mode. We are disconnected from our bodies, our truth, and each other. And actually, there is so much that is normalized these days that is actually not normal. That is actually perpetuating cycles of trauma and disease. Most people are under chronic stress, and chronic stress leads to inflammation, which leads to autoimmune disorders, which are through the roof, particularly with women, and also mental health struggles and diagnoses, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and more. There is a collective exhaustion happening, especially for the helpers and healers, the empaths and the sensitives. You have seen it. You have seen it. You've seen therapists who are carrying emotional weight, therapists who are taking home the troubles of their clients, healers and therapists who are burning out, people who are stuck in that giving mode with empty cups, with not receiving. We were taught how to care for others, but not how to care for ourselves. I was just talking to a client this morning about this, particularly in women. There are so many levels that this putting others' needs first or caring for others first is, particularly in the family systems, but also beyond that, is just so deeply embodied in us. And and there's the layers of intergenerational programming. There is cultural programming, potentially religious programming. I personally come from a background that on my mother's side is a Jewish lineage, and my great grandfather was the last who was Orthodox Jew. And then my grandmother was just Jewish, and then my mother was like sort of getting away from religion. But I was still very much brought up in that world with my great grandparents and my grandparents of what is expected of girls and of women. And I remember, I did help care for my grandmother at the end of her life, and I remember being at her funeral and the rabbi telling me, good girl, and good girl, and your mom did so good, and now you're going to do the same thing for your mom. So that's just an example. That's just an example of sometimes we have that direct awareness of the of what's expected of us. And there's also just the unspoken, deeply embodied in cellular and nervous system programming of how we are supposed to care for others, but not ourselves. And in fact, as a population, we have been programmed to give our power over to others, to trust the experts over our own innate wisdom. We have our own innate inner wisdom, our intuition, and inner healer. I can talk about all of this in a future episode, but most people are disconnected from that or just override it or just don't listen to it or just don't trust it. So if you think about this, from the time you were young, we learn to disconnect from our own bodily sensations because you were told when you can go to the bathroom, when you can't go to the bathroom. You're told what time you can eat. You're told smile or don't cry or go hug so and so. When you can play, when you can do most things. And so, in order to not pee on yourself, you have to learn how to shut that down because you can only go when somebody else says that you need to go. And if you grew up in a home where emotions weren't welcome, or being yourself wasn't welcome, or parents are not doing their own work so that they're not passing the expectations of their own parent that their parents had of them that they never met onto you, it's just a perpetuation. So, take a breath. Pausing to just let that sink in for a moment. Think about how much you seek out other people's opinions or trust what somebody else says. You may not, I was going to say over your own, but you might not even know what you actually want. You might not even be in touch on a deeper level of what your true opinion is, what your true thoughts are. We have to reconnect with our inner wisdom, our inner healer, reconnect with the sensations of the body and start to drop into a new way of being. So, this podcast is a bridge for you, a bridge between therapists and healers, science and the soul, service and self connection. It is time to create a model of care that does not sacrifice the practitioner, but prioritizes the practitioner. I like to give this analogy. We all have this concept of the cup. Like, you can't pour from an empty cup. You gotta fill the cup up. You can't pour from an empty cup. Here, I have a cup right here of water. It's not about filling your cup and emptying it out. It's not about that at all. It's not about filling your cup so that you have a full enough cup to empty out. It's about always filling your cup. You just are pouring into your cup so much that what happens is it starts to overflow. And then you have so much more capacity for others, so much more space for other. You can hold, you can give, you can support, you can create so much more. So the one breath method is trauma informed, it is client led, it is somatic, body based therapy because the body keeps the score. Bessel van der Kolk, bringing in that title of his book. The body keeps the score, but we are also not just the body. We are energetic, we are spiritual beings. And so, at the center of the one breath method is the breath. The breath is the starting point, not the story. This is where the one breath method differs. We don't need the story because the body is holding the story. The body is the story. And when we focus on being present and utilizing the breath to connect and drop deeper into more presence and embodiment, something starts to unfold, something starts to happen. The one breath method encourages and supports autonomy. It supports nervous system safety through co regulation, returning to the body, finding safety in the body, and co regulation, attunement between two people is part of what helps to create safety, to create self acceptance, Healing happens in relationship, in part in relationship, but not in unhealthy relationships. So, the core of the one breath method is a way for the therapist, the healer, the facilitator, it's a way of being as a person, as a facilitator, where you are so embodied and connected and can be in presence and can be in creating healthy co regulation and can be in non judgmental full acceptance of the person in front of you, recognizing that they hold their own wisdom, their own answers, they hold their own capacity to heal. They are not broken. So, if you are somebody who holds space for others, I want you to just pause and think about this for a moment. How often do you feel like you have to, or are in some way responsible for fixing your client, or healing your client, or helping your client, or you feel like things might be hopeless for them? So, this is a very different way of being. You're not here to fix, you are here to hold. There's space for the practitioner and the client, and healing can happen for both at the same time. It just looks different. And this modality is built from lived experience, from my experiences, which I'm sure will come through in this podcast, and from deep study, from deep study. The breath becomes the bridge back to who we really are. So, I'm going to show up every week with a new episode, teachings, reflections, practices you can implement right away, occasional conversations with students or guest experts. Again, hopefully, Debbie will come in and have some conversations with me, and she might show up as well for an occasional solo episode. We're going to explore trauma informed tools, breath and body practices, boundaries, burnout, and healing the healer, or walking the path as the wounded healer. We're going to share stories from real people who are doing this work, who are walking this path. Yeah, so there's going to be real talk and grounding practices. And this is a space for you to reconnect with yourself so that you can keep showing up from a place of wholeness. Thank you so much for being here. If you resonate with what I've said, I would love for you to hit the follow the show, like the show, share it with a friend, and leave me questions or comments either underneath the episode, or you can send them to me at Lisa McNett on the social medias or at One Breath Institute. And I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to One Breath Wisdom. If something in today's episode spoke to you, I would love to know it. Send me a message on Instagram at One Breath Institute or at Lisa McNett, and please share the episode with someone else who needs to hear it. Remember, you are not here to carry it all. You are here to come home to yourself, one breath at a time. Until next time, take a breath and be well.